Jonas?
Here.
Dr. Simmons?
Here.
Dr. Strickler?
Here.
Mr. Bibb?
Here. Let me get a stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Safety briefing. We have an exit on the top and the bottom of the stairs and one right here. And then may I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda.
I'll second.
Dr. Simmons?
Yes.
Dr. Strickler?
Yes.
Mrs. Jonas? Yes. Mr. Bibb?
Yes. Item 3.1, approval of the minutes for the special meeting and work session from February 2025.
I'll make a motion to approve items 3.1 and 3.2 as presented.
Second.
Dr. Strickler?
Yes.
Dr. Simmons?
Yes.
Mrs. Jonas?
Yes.
Mr. Bibb?
Yes. Item 4.1, national merit finalists, presented by Mr. Hook.
Yes, Mr. Fender and Mr. Jados, if you would come up, we've got some extremely exciting awards. This is rarefied air.
It's 100% right. Thank you guys for having us here to recognize these just top-notch students. This, as Mr. Hook said, is rarefied air. This is the best of the best, the brightest of the brightest. So you've heard us talk about the results of the PSAT that these individuals took as juniors, and we had a really high-achieving group come be recommended and commended as commended scholars, and then another group for semifinalist status, and then it just gets more selective from there. We're talking about the top 1% of students from across the country who participated in this assessment being commended as finalist tonight. It's wow is a good word to use. It is a group of scholars that contribute in the classroom, and they contribute around the school as well as leaders. So the group that we have tonight is really special. I'm going to bring our finalist from Anderson up. I'm going to let Mr. Jado speak a little bit about his students as well. We'll have any students from Turpin present come down as well, and then we'll do a joint recommendation to the board for approval. So with no further ado, Leighton Iredale, please come on down.
And first thing I'm going to want to do is I do have two students that aren't here today, so we'll announce their names. I did want to echo what Mr. Fender said. It's an unbelievable accomplishment when we're talking about the entire country and how many hundreds of thousands and millions of students that have taken this test, and once again, the top 1%. Two students that are not here tonight that could not make it, Charlie Coe and also Tantu Bukoltz. Could not make it today, but now I want to call down Russ Hausman.
Okay, thanks. All right, at this time, Mr. Jados and I recommend or offered the board what's the right phrasing? I never get it right. I've been up here 100 times. Recommend that the board approve. We just had a little back and forth of her.
That the board commend?
We recommend that the board commend the following, or the aforementioned students as finalists for the National Merit Scholarship Competition. Thank you.
Way.
Kyle, I want to make a bad joke about seeing these two tutors for some help with the commendation.
Thank you, guys.
Reports to the Board of Education. Item 5.1, the Forest Hills Teachers Association report. Mr. Chris Preston. Good afternoon.
Well, hello and good evening to each of you.
Good evening.
This week, our district has been celebrating our staff and teachers in each of our buildings and central office. I'd like to give a shout out to the Forest Hills Council, along with all of the fantastic PTO volunteers, community groups, and local businesses for helping to organize the festivities. The efforts are greatly appreciated. Each day, Forest Hills educators foster not only academic excellence, but also skills related to collaboration, resilience, and adaptable learning in our rapidly changing world. Our staff works each day to create an environment where all students can be successful and thrive. The Forest Hills Teachers Association appreciates the board's commitment to supporting our teachers through resources, professional development opportunities, and policies that strengthen our schools. We look forward to continuing our partnership with the Board of Education and further building a strong, supportive, and inspiring educational community. This concludes my report.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.
Item 5.2, the Forest Hills Foundation for Education. Ms. Gillard?
Good evening. Thank you, Bob. Hello to the school board. I'm here to just quickly give a report on behalf of the Forest Hills Foundation. As many of you may have seen, registration is live and available for the Forest Hills 5K. We're thrilled that our theme this year is one community, one finish line. So I do have a couple updates. First and foremost, outside of the 5K, I did want to put a plug into everyone around how you can help the foundation continue to support student needs and help us cross the finish line. We had 21 grants come from students and parents this year through the PTO community grants, which is the highest number we've ever had. So momentum is growing with that. And those will be awarded. We will be awarding $25,000 after spring break. So quick update on that. Also, we're going to be kicking off our senior campaign in honor to congratulate, recognize all of our seniors at both Anderson and Turpin. And then the last thing too, for those that are alumni in the community, you may be, if we have your contact information, you may be receiving a survey from us, and we just want to hear from you. I think we are constantly trying to find ways that we can connect with alumni. Many people stay here, many people depart. I also think in the spirit of working together as a community, this is something the boosters wants to do. This is something the band boosters wants to do. Everybody wants to know how we can keep in touch with our alumni. So we'd love to hear from you if you get the survey. It takes about 3 minutes to fill it out. So on to the 5K. If you can go to the next slide. There are 3 ways that we're promoting to get involved. The QR code is there. You can walk, run, you can cheer on participants. It's going to be on Saturday, May 10th. All money raised this year is going to go to support 3 things. I like the 3 theme. One is teacher grants. In the last 3 years, the foundation has awarded over $330,000. So we are over $250,000, and we want to continue that effort. But we need your support to do that. In addition to that, the money will directly go to student grants. And the last thing too is the foundation is continuing to work with the district to identify different tiered student support. So as we plan for next year, what that looks like. And then also anybody and everybody can come to the after party. It's a fun morning, free food, tons of booths. So we hope, and you don't want to miss out on the mascot musical chairs. That's always a highlight of the event. So our goal this year is to raise $150,000. Last year, we were very close to getting 2,800 participants. So of course, you go big or go home, right? And so our goal this year is to bring it, we have over 2,800 participants this year, and it is the largest fundraiser for the foundation. So all money raised goes back to support the kids in our district. So we hope you will join us. There is still opportunity to sponsor the event. The QR code is included here. And I did want to give a quick shout out. This weekend, Tri-State Running Company is going to be having their 25% off any and all running gear. So if your kids, your family, your neighbors, your athlete, whoever needs some new running gear, this is a great weekend to do that. And they have 3 different locations. Probably the 2 closest are Marymount and Edgewood. So this is the 10th year that Tri-State has supported the foundation. And so definitely want to take advantage of this great discount weekend if you can. We have 2 parties coming up because why not throw in some more parties? The 5K pre-party is going to be Thursday, April 24th at 50 West. This is going to be targeted towards the running clubs. So for those that don't know, that all elementaries have running clubs that they prepare to participate in the race. There are over 700 elementary kids that are preparing right now to prepare for the 5K in May. And so those running clubs will actually get an opportunity to run on the trail at 50 West. So great opportunity to come and talk to parents, kids. We hope you can join us. And then the second event is actually going to be on May 1st, which is at Wandering Monsters, another huge supporter of the foundation. And that is open to everyone. It's going to be a dine and donate night. So anytime you can come in and grab some dinner, grab a drink, a percentage will go back to the Forest Hills Foundation. So we are thrilled to officially kick off the 5K. I love this photo. It's like one of my favorites. When I'm having a bad day, I just put this on my screen because if anybody knows how to have fun, it's these kids, and we're thrilled to continue to support them. So thank you.
Stacy, if there was an alumni listening who wanted to get involved, they could just Google Forest Hills Foundation, and there's a Get Involved button on the website, right? 'Cause you said
Correct.
take the survey if you get it, but if there were people who
Yes.
heard this and wanted to,
Absolutely.
would that be the best way to connect?
Yes. Great question. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Item 6.1, updates from the superintendent. Mr. Hook?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Bibb. Members of the board, I'll try to keep my comments brief. Just want to touch base. Had the privilege this week of going and surprising a couple of our top-notch educators in the district. Jody Brandon, here left picture up here, is one of our preschool intervention specialists. Just a fantastic teacher. I mean, you just watch for a little while, and it just makes you smile. You know, some of our most challenging children, just the patience of Job, and just is something else with kids. We're just very excited to have her, and she is so involved with our preschool in terms of compliance with the due, as well as Step Up to Quality licensure board. You know, she is top notch. Couldn't be a better candidate for the Anderson Area Chamber Educator of the Year Award, representing our school district. The other one I wanted to mention is Debbie Nimmo. She's on the right. She is a health teacher at Turpin High School. Again, unique licensure in both health and Spanish right now, and she's done both. Right now she's doing all health, but this is one of those people that just go above and beyond all the time. And it's kind of fun when we walk into the room and they're just don't know what to say. And it's not the balloons, I guess. I think it's just the fact that, you know, to these kind of people, they see what they're doing as just what they do. But they don't realize sometimes the impact they're making on all of our children. And so she's going to be celebrated as the Hamilton County Educational Foundation of Year Excellence. And that'll be, usually that's at the Sharonville Convention Center a little bit later in May. So I just wanted to mention those two outstanding individuals. Highlight of my day is getting to go in there and meet with them. Secondly, I wanted to recognize our Staff Appreciation Week. We kind of combine everything. I can't keep all the Hallmark holidays and all the different ones they add. And so a few years ago, we kind of combined them all, and it really helps. And so I just want to say a special thank you to our PTOs and our Forest Hills Council for making this a special week for teachers. They go around down to the transportation department, throughout the district, food service, all of our staff, teachers, they just make it memorable. And every once in a while, it's important we let people know how much they mean to us. And we've got a fantastic staff. And so I just want to shout out to all of our staff, but I also want to shout out to our PTOs and the Forest Hill Council for helping make it a memorable week for those people. Finally, I spent quite a bit of the last few days on the phone, a lot that today. I be in Columbus tomorrow, at least for the morning for legislative meetings. Then I guess Friday morning I have a countywide meeting as well with superintendents, and I believe one of our legislators will be there. But anyway, that said, I've been working with legislators for 20 years, and I think it's really important that when you approach legislators, you realize that it's important to not just point out problems, but to give solutions that are actually doable, can work. Sometimes I think in our attempt to get our point across, sometimes we can kind of close some options, and I just think it's important. Like I said, some of this you learn over time. You learn, well, maybe I should have been a little softer with that, or maybe I should have said it this way, but they're just regular people. Like I said, I shared with them my thoughts. After I talk with them, then I usually send them a letter to kind of follow up so they can use the points. Some of the things I talk about, of course, the fair school funding model, where that'll light, I don't know. Whether it'll be actually the governor's model or some adjustment to it, nobody knows yet. It has to still go now to the Senate and then likely a conference committee before there's an agreement, and then up to the governor. But the two things that I really kind of focused on, and again, I focus on the things that to me are critical for Forest Hills, because that's who I represent. And number one is the categorical funding component, and without going into the weeds, and I promise I won't because you can get lost in these weeds, but the categorical funding in general, if you take special ed, for example, it's probably one of the biggest arenas in there. Just so you know, I recommended, and I know there are other people that have as well, is to take that component out of the funding formula and fund it separately. And there's the reason for it is pretty simple. As a 10% school district, in other words, our share from the state's only 10%. We don't get the full amount. You just don't. We spent $14.5 million. Don't hold me to the exact number, but it's pretty close. Pretty close. $14.5 million out of our general fund just in special education. Okay? We received roughly $677,000 from the state. That's about 4.6% coverage. If you pull that out and start funding that at any percentage above that, that's a win. And it's a win for every child in every school district in the state of Ohio. And so those are things that are important. What we found out and what we see is going on is that don't know the actual reason. I'm sure people have their own opinions, but the intensity levels of some of our most fragile children or higher, okay? That takes more supports in place for it. Also suggested adding a line in the categorical items for mental health. Because typically it just gets put in the second category, which is other health impaired. Well, sometimes the needs are so great, it just doesn't even come close to the coverage needed. So that's a win. I said that's a win for school districts, it's a win for our children, it's a win for legislators and governors, and I don't know how you can argue that one. That's just a good, smart thing. So feel pretty passionate about that piece. Funding the guarantee, obviously, for schools like Forest Hills is pretty critical as well, especially if you don't do the first one that I mentioned. You know, the guarantee, we're on a guarantee, we're at getting the same amount we got in 2021, okay? And then so that doesn't account for all the inflation that's happened since then. So it just kind of keeps everybody okay. We have about 187, I want to say it's about 187 school districts that are on the guarantee right now. That could balloon if they don't do anything else in the formula. That could balloon to over 300 school districts. That's hard. That tells you maybe the inputs aren't right, that there's something missing, because you can't have half of your school districts or over half your school districts actually that the funding formula doesn't work for. That becomes problematic. So I think there's some things you can do. I think we have to look at initially fulfilling those guarantees at 100% if they would. If not, maybe some shorter, longer phase out and phase in program for districts. The common mistake with this is that it's all about enrollment. It really isn't. It's also about the fact that I think they're going to have to evaluate the local capacity calculations, which include how much money people make, okay, as well as their income, as well as property values. Okay, those are dramatically changing. So when you start putting those pieces all in there, it changes things. So that's really what I've been doing. I had some great conversations today. I was on the phone with about an hour with Senator Wilson. It gives me reason to be optimistic that the Senate is listening. And so I just wanted to share that about my day. So I promise not to get too far in the weeds. So thank you.
Thank you. Item 7.1, procedures for public commentary. The board is committed to conducting its meeting in a productive and efficient manner. To ensure that the meeting is completed in a reasonable amount of time, while also recognizing the importance of adequate opportunity for public inputs. In order to conduct an orderly and fair representation of expression, the board will provide a period of 30 minutes for public participation per policy PO 0169.1 at every regular board meeting. Each speaker will have 3-minute time limit. If there are more than 10 speakers, which there are not, individual time may be adjusted. We do not allow yielding of time. The board does not discriminate based on the individual content of the speech or the viewpoint of the speaker. If several people wish to speak on the same topic, the time limit may be adjusted at the president's discretion. Speakers are asked to speak from the podium and address the board. Speakers are also asked to start by clearly stating their name and address. We have 7 speakers. The first one will be Emily Roth.
Good evening. My name is Emily Roth. My address is 2051 Forest Crest, and I have a 6th grader who is a student in the district. I have 2 issues I want to address tonight, so I'll try to talk quickly. First, I would like to encourage our district to join the over 140 other public school districts in Ohio who are part of the Vouchers Hurt Ohio lawsuit, and to formally advocate for the state to fully implement the Fair School Funding Plan. Traditional districts will have a decrease from 2025 funding levels of over $100 million in the next 2 years, while vouchers will increase over $265 million in the same time period, according to the governor's proposed budget. There's no reason any public school district in the state of Ohio should not be advocating against this part of the budget. The second issue I would like to address is that of the impending loss of our treasurer. Per the district's social media pages, our district just received the Auditor of State Award for having a clean audit report. Less than 13% of Ohio school districts receive this award, and we've won it many times over. Despite these facts, our treasurer was recently forced to resign. The resignation of our treasurer occurred after a subjective and non-evidence-based evaluation process showed allegedly poor performance, despite many years of positive evaluations and a lack of objective goals on which the treasurer was being measured. I've been in a supervisory position for many years. Each year, I have to complete evaluations on every one of my supervisees. I've never met anyone who likes doing evaluations. However, it's part of the job I was hired to do, just like it's part of the job each of the board members were elected to do. When you're hired or elected to do a job, the expectation is that you do that job to the best of your ability. In this case, that would mean using an evidence-based evaluation form with clearly stated and objective performance goals, even if it takes more time or is more difficult than the one you found online. You have an ethical obligation to fairly evaluate district employees. Another thing I've learned after being in a leadership position for over a decade is the high cost of turnover. In any organization, the money it takes to recruit a new staff member and train them is significant. This is even more true when the position is highly specialized, such as that of a school treasurer. Due to the clearly partisan nature of the forced resignation of our treasurer, the added expense with which the district will be burdened when forced to find a new one, the exemplary performance of our current treasurer, and the indisputable fact that one board member who was in favor of the resignation was likely already planning to move out of the district at the last board meeting, it is imperative that this decision be reconsidered at this time. Thank you.
Next up is Olivia, forgive me for your last name, is it Kolchik? Kolzik?
Good evening, board members. My name is Olivia Krolchak, and I'm at 2386 Mounts Road. And I'm here because I've seen firsthand what happens when DEI and woke agendas infiltrate our schools. And I'm watching Forest Hills very closely. I attended school in Ohio and faced the absurdity of DEI as a student at the University of Cincinnati. In 2023, I pushed back in a required DEI course, only to have my professor dock my grade, calling me exclusionary and transphobic. That incident went viral, sparking national debate because it exposed how DEI twists education into indoctrination. I fought back and I won because I refused to let ideology silence the truth. Across the nation, I've experienced the threat of DEI. I've been held hostage by hundreds of protesters at the University of Washington for calling out the lies of DEI. Across Ohio, I've watched schools wrestle with this mess. And here, in Forest Hills, you're at a crossroads. Your February meeting showed this. The Trump administration gave warning to ditch race-based policies or lose funding, and it seems that in this school district, you are willing to ignore this. If that is the case, you're defying an executive order and risking the future of the kids in the school district. I've lived through the state's DEI battles. This morning, I testified for SB 1.
Could you stop? We're allowing people to speak. Everybody gets their time.
Thank you.
We're not going to play this game anymore. If you, whoever she was, next time you're out. They will escort you out. We're not going to do this anymore.
Thank you. I've lived through the state's DEI battles. This morning, I testified for Senate Bill 1 to kill DEI in Ohio, and tonight I'm here to hold you guys accountable. You've had since February to comply with the federal directive. Just know that if you do choose to violate this federal directive, if you continue to push woke agendas like equity training or diversity days, I won't hesitate to act. I will personally file a federal complaint with the Office of Civil Rights against this school district, alleging violations because DEI discriminates by design. You've got top schools here, so don't gamble that away on ideology. Eliminate it now, not tomorrow, not after the next lawsuit. I'm here to ask for clarity and compliance. Forest Hills can lead Ohio in rejecting this nonsense or face the consequences. So the choice is yours, but just know I'm watching very closely. Thank you.
Next up is Ann Salcido.
Good evening. My name is Ann Salcido. I live at 5793 Brookstone Drive. The Forest Hills School District culture blueprint includes noble and positive statements, such as set a positive example in actions, behaviors, word, and attitudes. Create a safe and inclusive learning environment where everyone feels valued, respected, and safe. Documents do not build culture, our actions do. We all agree with this philosophy and certainly the action to bring this blueprint alive. However, my colleagues will soon shine a light on examples which are occurring in the Forest Hills School District that are 180 degrees counter to this culture blueprint. These examples represent teaching content and materials which harm a safe learning environment, erode respect amongst our students, and do not set the positive example in actions, behaviors, words, and attitudes as stated in your blueprint. To the contrary, such examples promote inappropriate, sexually explicit, and/or racially divisive behavior as a norm to our students. We consider these serious breaches. We challenge this board to follow your own culture blueprint to identify areas to improve and make meaningful positive change by setting goals. We expect the board to do the right thing, demonstrate integrity and honesty, and set or revise policies to ensure breaches like these do not occur. We expect your rigorous enforcement so that our school principals, teachers, and administrators live your culture blueprint and stop the breaches. Culture is not built by what you proclaim. It is built by what you practice, promote, and permit. Thank you.
Thank you. Up next, Kevin Mishak.
I think that's what's coming.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
My name is Kevin Mishak, 8433 Holiday Hills Drive. I have 2 children in the district, a senior graduating from Anderson High School and a 9th grader at Anderson High School. Nationally, parents are strongly concerned about books in their school library. Books with age-inappropriate, sexual, and controversial content. This community, me, is no exception. There are several books currently in our school libraries which are a concern. One example is the book Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl by Jesse Andrews. According to the Forest Hill School District online catalog, this book is in the Nagel Middle School Library for 7th and 8th graders. Now, I am not going to read out the sexually explicit content. It's in the handout. You can read through it. I actually took the time to read this book. It's only 259 pages long. I read quite a bit. My objection is a little different. I was actually quite surprised by the language available to middle schoolers. This book could be a perfect primer for vulgar language in schools. For instance, 10 different expletives are used over 267 times in a book of 259 pages. That's one cuss word per page. There's entire pages full of nothing but foul language. And again, for 7th and 8th graders. Now, we can argue about the content being sexually explicit, but I don't think anybody wants me to sit here and read out the 10 different expletives. I'll start with the big F-bomb. It's in there 97 times. It goes off and uses derogatory terms for homosexual men and women 4 times each. It drops the S word 88 times. It refers to genitalia 35 different times for male and female parts. And I'm not talking about the scientific terms either. You got this in a book, you got this in a library for middle schoolers. 7th and 8th grades. That's your culture blueprint? This is the example that you want our middle schoolers to take to high schools? Here's the book. All right, you can check it out online. It's available online at the Anderson Book.
Thank you. Next up, Dan Salcido.
Hello, Board. My name is Dan Salcido. I live at 5793 Brookstone Drive. I'm confident that this Board and Superintendent would be aligned to President Trump's recent executive order stating that, quote, parents trust America's schools to provide a rigorous education and instill a patriotic admiration for our nation and for our American values. Yes or yes? Recently, the U.S. Department of Education directed public schools to end DEI work or risk losing federal funding. Schools across the country, including right here in Cincinnati, are abandoning harmful DEI programs. The DOE is striving to end discrimination in the use of harmful race stereotypes. Previous DEI efforts indoctrinate our innocent school children to be compelled to adopt identities as either quote-unquote victims or quote-unquote oppressors and demanded acquiescence to quote white privilege or quote unconscious bias based solely on their skin color, like mine. I'm Hispanic. DEI actually promotes racial discrimination and divide. These practices not only erode critical thinking, sow division, but they also create confusion and distrust. They undermine the very foundations of personal identity, family unity, and undermine parental authority. Forest Hill School District has supported such DEI indoctrination in the recent past, but in January of 2022, when the new board members were sworn in, have since taken some actions to eliminate it. We encourage you to embrace the removal of the harmful DEI indoctrination in Forest Hill School District, and as stated in your culture blueprint, to create a safe and inclusive learning environment where everyone feels valued, respected, and safe, void of a harmful, woke influence of DEI. The DEI directive includes removing DEI resources and has established a website for anonymous parental reporting of any DEI activity. We are challenging this board and this administration on the following. 1, how has Forest Hill School District substantively complied with the DOE directive? 2, has Forest Hill School District informed teachers of the requirement to cease behavior inconsistent with the culture blueprint and to cease exposing our students to DEI or CSE material, which can be a violation and risk a loss of funding? What are the specific consequences if and when a teacher goes rogue? 3rd, how has Forest Hill School Board and administration improved and taken ownership and accountability as it says in your culture blueprint in the text and library book selection process, including clear guidelines, redundant vetting, and a robust approval step. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I've got some handouts for the board.
Last speaker, Mr. Jeff Nye.
Hey, Jeff Nye, 1000 Eversole. I got to leave in a few minutes for an event with one of my kids, so I won't be around if you do address this, but I hope at the appropriate time in the meeting you guys will address either the board or the administration a couple of things. One is there are two major search projects going on right now, one for a board member, one for a treasurer, and I hope the board will be more transparent than it has in the past with these processes. These are important decisions for the district, and we're entitled to not just transparency, but timely transparency. Telling us what happened after the fact isn't good enough. You guys should be more upfront, not just through a comment at a board meeting, not just through the occasional email from the board, about who you're consulting with, what criteria you're considering, who's applied, who you're interviewing, how those decisions are getting made. Those are important decisions that the entire community should be involved in a timely manner. The second thing dovetails with some of the other comments we've heard here today. I mentioned at last month's meeting that, of course, it is important. It certainly looks like there are going to be changes in the law coming down the line from both the state and federal levels, and it's absolutely important that the district comply with those. But as I said then, an executive order is not a law, and in fact, last I saw, a judge has enjoined the executive order we've heard about here as being likely unconstitutional. The point I was going to make, though, is that one of the next items up on the agenda is this year's insurance costs. And it's hard not to notice it's about $100,000 more than it was last year, $97,000, 19 or 20%. You guys have the numbers. And I guess my question is, and something I hope you'll consider, hope you'll discuss, is whether and to what extent that giant jump in a premium is related to all the litigation this district has found itself in, including race-based policies that are enjoined by the courts, whether it's the Updike litigation or the Dan Loading litigation that's still ongoing, or I don't know what else might be out there. And I guess my question is, in retrospect, now that one of those cases is settled and the other case is ongoing, do you think those policies were student-centered and good for kids and their education? Thank you.
Thank you.
That's just facilities insurance, just so you know.
No, it includes the lawsuit insurance. It's the entire, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Dave Loback, I'm sorry, I missed a name.
Yeah, E&O. It's called E&O, employees, errors and omissions. It's included. That's what the lawsuit.
Good evening, everybody. My name's Dave Loback. I live at 850 Strathcona Drive. Earlier this school year, a Turpin teacher read aloud a book in her classroom called The Perks of Being a Wallflower. Book contains objectifies sex, contains lewd content, and resulted in one student going home embarrassed, unsafe, and felt disrespected. Her parents wrote a letter to the teacher and to Mr. Hook complaining about it, explaining the incident. I'm going to share a passage from this book. I'll read it to you, and if you object to any of the language, let me know, and I'll bleep it out if it continues. Unfortunately, the students weren't given that choice. They just were hit with this thing, and you'll see it's very, very explicit. If there's any children there that are in the room that could hear this, you might want to take them out, or they might be exposed to material that wouldn't be appropriate. This is the book, The Perks of Being a Wallflower, by Stephen Chbosky. And I'm going to read from page 31. Please, Dave, no. But the boy just talked soft to her about how good she looked and things like that. And she grabbed his penis with her hands and started moving it. I wish I had described this a little more nicely without using words like penis, but that was the way it was. After a few minutes, the boys pushed the girl's head down, and she started to kiss his penis. She was still crying. Finally, she stopped crying because he put his penis in her mouth, and I don't think you can cry in that position. Why would a teacher read that to a class? I don't see anything beneficial. I see no intellectual content. I don't see any growth resulting from it. The school district here has a cultural blueprint. I call on the board now to live up to that themselves, and I'd like to know what action was taken regarding this teacher, and what action was taken to assure that this doesn't happen again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And there's excerpts that were passed out to you that has the details from that book.
Thank you. Item 8.1, Human Resources Report. Mr. Fellows.
Good evening again, and few items here for approval this evening in the HR report. First is a bit of advance notice on a retirement pending December of next school year. Want to congratulate Nicole Beinke for 23 years in the district, and although she's not leaving at the end of this year, technically, she certainly, we wish her all the best in her future and in retirement. We have a number of resignations. It's kind of that time of year on the staffing side, folks with plans that creep up at the end of the school year. So there are a couple certified staff members and a handful of classified resignations for approval this evening. Item D for the appointments side of things, I would really emphasize number one, we've got spring sports starting out. There's a handful of last minute spring sports appointment recommendations for this evening attached. And I would also want to emphasize or give just a moment to recognize two administrative hires that we have. One is not new to us, and I'll begin with him. I don't know if he's still here, but Kyle Mack, the associate principal at Nagel Middle School, has been through a relatively strenuous and grueling process as an internal candidate. There were over 40 applicants for the Summit principal position, and we worked collaboratively as a central office team to coordinate a process that included various levels of stakeholder feedback and involvement in that interview process. And one of the things that you're always kind of striving towards is so just a sense of consensus at the end of the interview process, and we reached that with all four groups, independent of one another, and we're very excited for Kyle Mack. Is Kyle still here? I don't think he's probably decided to peace out. So I appreciate Kyle for coming this evening. It's a change of assignment, which is it's great for Summit. We're very excited for Summit, and then as things go in our world in HR, it presents then a vacancy over at Nagel, which we have posted for, and we're along that process of finding that next candidate for that administrative team over there at Nagel. The other one is still here, and he's been waiting patiently in the back. You had a chance to meet him. I'm going to ask him to stand up, although you might not like that. And his name is Terrell Davis. Terrell Davis is our recommendation for the new Nagel athletic director position. As the board is aware, Zach McCormick announced his intent to resign at the conclusion of this current contract. We're very excited about Terrell. He's bringing a lot of great athletic director experience with him, and that's one of the primary things that we were looking for in that program over there, is somebody who's been in the chair before, that has been through, that understands the ins and outs of that position, and he will work awesome with our team of athletic directors, both at Anderson and Turpin, and certainly will be working well and closely with Chuck as well. So I know Tiffany and her team is super excited. 48 candidates for that position, and congratulations, Terrell. So. I'd be remiss if I didn't also add that he is a Michigan fan, and I know that there are a few here They're few and far between, but one more in the organization, so there you go. Great hire. Moving on down in the report, there's volunteers, student teachers, a couple kind of squeezing in here at the end, the last quarter of the school year, and then a few job descriptions for updated revisions ahead of next school year. So, any questions?
Yeah, Rob, one quickly. I've asked you this before, but again, like people are watching for the first time and whatnot, but with the volunteers that we bring in, can you briefly talk about the vetting process, the background check to make sure that? Yeah,
we don't place any volunteer on a board agenda that hadn't had a proper background check that's been conducted here internally. Oftentimes we get people that come in and say, hey, I just had one. We just, to cover all bases, we run the FBI, the BCI background check, and until that clears, they're not volunteering with kids one-on-one. There are, particularly like if you've got a visitor in a school, there's the initial Raptor background check at the front office that kind of does a preliminary screening, and that's just for, you're not working one-on-one with kids, but you might be helping in the copy room, you might be helping in the cafeteria, but you're not left unsupervised with students. These on this list are those that have been properly background checked, and thank the Lord that they're helping to provide some additional support for kids. So that's kind of how it works.
Of course, we need them for sure. Yeah,
for sure. Anything else?
Real quick, the teachers and the administrators did the retire.
Yep.
What's the cost savings on that, since we're keeping experienced personnel?
Yeah,
here?
so it varies, but what we, our CBA with FHTA indicates that you bring a certified staff member back at step 5. Step 5 is quite different from the end of the road where they currently are. So that savings is in the neighborhood of about $30,000 to the district. Okay. That's on the certified side. On the administrative side, it's a little bit different. It's not quite as prescribed. We don't have steps in that area. All told, in this group, we're looking at north of $130,000 in cost avoidance. So, yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Item 9, business operations. Mr. Eckert.
Good evening. I have 5 items on the agenda, and you've heard most of these items at some point in time at one point. Item 9.1 is our school bus purchases. We will be purchasing 5 buses this year. That will start, that's to keep our fleet up to the rotation that we've discussed numerous times. And we're expecting delivery for the majority of them in July. Item 9.2, again, last month we talked about awarding going out to bid for the next 2 items, the Turpin chiller and the Nagel Middle School boiler. Because of time constraints and ordering constraints, these are 2 resolutions that I've asked you to approve, that we will go in and sign the contracts once we find the lowest responsible bidders in both cases. We have many, many months outlay on some of these deliveries, so we cannot afford another month off. And item 9.4, so it's 9.2 and 9.3, the chiller and the boiler. 9.4 is something that if you've been on the facilities committee like Mr. Bibb has, we've been talking about for a number of years. We have finally found a solution that we believe is viable for a district-wide radio system for the administrative team that will connect with transportation administration and will not have any contingents on cell systems, wireless, or anything like that. So in a true catastrophic emergency, our administrative team and our buses will be able to communicate, which is vital in any situation like that. And number 9.5 is the annual insurance renewal. As you have seen, the price is $594. That is an increase. I'd love to say we're unique,
but we're not. I was at the county meeting, and basically everyone was ranging anywhere from about a 19 to a 22% increase, and that has to do, one large factor that does have to do with is the fact that insurance companies are now placing us in Tornado Alley. Yes, they believe Tornado Alley has shifted, or at least they believe it. And so there's a lot of increase in other sets. But to bring this into a bit of perspective, this insurance policy does cover administrative errors and omissions and various other components like that, but it also protects, just on the property end, our $333 million worth of property here in Forest Hills. And unluckily, we noticed last month how important insurance is, and with all the challenges we faced at Anderson. So a proper insurance is not something that I believe we should cut costs on, and Ms. Cropper and Mr. Hook also agree. So we believe we have a strong insurance package that will protect our district and our facilities for the year to come. So with those 5 items discussed, are there any questions? Okay. With no questions being asked, at this time I would recommend that the board approve items 9.1 through 9.5 as part of the consent agenda. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Item teaching and learning, item 10.1, overnight field trips by Mr. Ogden.
Good evening, and thank you. I have 2 field trips that I am recommending. These are pretty annual by our Teacher Preparatory Academy, TPA, that we have at both high schools for the Ed Rising Conference and Competition in Orlando, June 24th through the 29th. Any questions? Okay, thank you very much.
The end of the consent agenda, yeah? Need a motion?
Sure. Item 11.1 is a committee report. Is that in the consent agenda?
Of the,
11.1 is in the.
It's just first.
the first reading of
Okay.
policy.
First reading.
Do you want me to do that, or is it, okay?
You can talk about it if you want to.
Yeah, sure. The policy committee met on March the 12th to discuss the updated Neola Volume 43. And this is the first reading of the policies, and next meeting in April will be the second reading, which we will vote on. This includes 26 policies, 12 administrative guidelines, and 1 updated form. Some highlights of new policies include release time for religious instruction, restroom, locker room, shower room exclusive to biological sex, and Parents' Bill of Rights. So that's pretty much it.
Item 12.1, Treasurer's Report. Ms. Cropper.
Okay. Moving back to the PowerPoint. There you go. There we go. Hey. All right. The treasurer's report, as always, starts with donations. So agenda item 12.1A show that donations over the month totaled just over $13,000. And that brings total donations for the year to date to just under $450,000. So again, very thankful for all our volunteers, our donations, both in kind and monetary, that supplement our programs. Item B on the treasurer's report gives you a snapshot of our 5-year forecast, which was approved by the board in November of 2024. Item C presents the general fund, our 5-year forecast revenues by comparing the estimate on the forecast to year-to-date actuals. The month of February is, and typically always is, a high cash flow month as we continue to receive advances against our spring real estate collections. So during the month of February, we received over $24 million in advances from the county auditor for property tax payments. Last month, if you recall, we received $5.1 million. So that brings our total spring real estate tax collections to date to $29.5 million. We have received all the advances that we will receive, and we will be getting a statement of settlement as soon as the county gets it settled. Could be sometime later in March, could be April. And again, as always, the other primary revenue that we get is our semi-monthly payments of our state aid, about $1.6 million a month. Moving on to item D. This presents the expenditures of the general fund, our 5-year forecast expenditures, and it compares our estimate on the 5-year forecast to our year-to-date actuals. As you know, expenditures are very stable during the year, and with 8 months or 87% of our fiscal year complete at the end of February, we have spent 63% of our appropriations. So tracking within budget, right where we should be at this point in time. Moving on to item E, this presents the activity of our general fund cash balance. And as you can see, the balance at the beginning of the year on July 1st, 2024 was $23.3 million. After adding revenues received to date and expenditures deducted to date, our cash balance stands at $46 million. As I said before, when we looked at revenues, we're at an extremely high point in our cash flow. And real estate collections only happen twice a year, so we will be spending that cash reserve down in the next months through June as our expenditures exceed revenues in those months. At February 28th, our unreserved cash balance stands at $40.6 million, or to put the balances another way, we have enough cash to operate the district for 167 days, and after encumbrances, we have 147 days of unreserved cash to operate the district. Moving on to item F, this presents the detailed activity and the revenues and expenditures for our main permanent improvement cost center. And this item also tracks the financial activity of our summer projects. So if we go to the second slide in item F, we can see where we stand currently on our last summer's projects. So summer of 2024 permanent improvement projects. So you can see we are almost closed out for the entire summer projects. We only have about 18,000 in outstanding encumbrances and waiting for the sign off on those items to close out last summer. Moving on to the third slide of item F, you see the description as well as estimated budgets and expenditures as we prepare for the next summer, so summer of 2025. As you can see, we've already encumbered $3.3 million of the $4.9 estimated budget for next summer, and summer will be here before you know it. And John Eckert and Larry Corley have done a great job getting a head start on those summer projects, getting them planned, contracts let out, and encumbrances taken care of. So, kudos to them. Moving on to item G. You will see that this item presents investment earnings to date at February 28th for this year, also 3 years of history. During the month of February, the district received $180,000 in investment earnings to bring our total to 1.7 for the current year. At this point, I still believe the district is going to be able to meet its investment earning projections of $2.5 million. The Feds met today. There was no change in the interest rate. As we talked about on the revenue slide, our balance is strong. So at this point, I do believe we will continue to meet those projections. Moving on to agenda item H, you will see our bank and investment reconciliations at February 28th. And the last couple slides have to do with some adjustments in our appropriations. So in fund, our permanent improvement fund, Fund 003, we increased appropriations really for two main reasons. As you heard John say before, he brought contracts to go ahead and order the 5 buses. A lot of times we leave that to the end of our summer project so we can add or deduct buses depending upon the budget left in the summer projects. But our EPC, the purchasing consortium that we buy our buses through, gave us a call a few weeks ago. They gave us $2,000 off per bus if we bought by the next Friday, so March 7th. So $2,000 and $100 million budget, but okay, we're going to take it. But the other thing that kind of led us to make the decision to go ahead and pull the trigger on the bus purchase is they explained to us that they were no longer, they weren't going to guarantee their bus pricing. They were worried about the tariffs. So we decided that looking at where we stood on encumbrances and budgets, we decided let's go ahead and get these buses contracted. So that was the changes in the permanent improvement. The other one was a reduction in 401 auxiliary service funds, and that has to do with state grant funds. And as you go through the year and the state gathers more enrollment data, they readjust the allocations. So again, that's just an allocation readjustment. In addition to the PowerPoint you also have the February cash position report. As you know, that details each fund and special cost center activity for the month and the fiscal year to date ending. Are there any questions on PowerPoint or finances?
Alana, on the permanent improvement fund on item F. So with the projects that were from last summer, it looks like we're coming in about $500,000 less than what was initially estimated, right? So with those savings from what was estimated, like where does that money go? It stays in the permanent improvement fund, but how is it used? Is it invested? What sort of projects does that go toward?
All money that is still in the cash flow is invested. So all funds invested, and the district puts all its interest earnings, except those that are required by law to be placed in other funds, into 003. So 003 gets all the interest. As we go through the summer, as you remember, we will adjust. We added a couple of things when we find out what the budget really is. For example, one of the things that we went ahead and added to the summer coming up was the custodial equipment, because we did have those savings from last year. So that's one of the things that Larry, John, and I meet weekly and talk about where we are in our budget, what the needs are. Should we leave that money in the fund, or are there needs that it makes sense to spend them on now? So kind of a mix of adding a little bit to that we can do and saving it if the needs aren't there.
Great, thank you.
If any other questions? If not, I respectfully request that you approve the treasurer's agenda items 12.1A through 12.1J as part of the consent agenda, which consists of agenda items 8.1 through 10.1, and the treasurer's items 12.1A through 12.1J, leaving out the first reading of the policy committee. That was item 11.
I'll make a motion to approve action items 8.1 through 10.1 and 12.1A through 12.1J as presented.
Second.
Dr. Strickler?
Yes.
Dr. Simmons?
Yes.
Mrs. Jonas?
Yes.
Mr. Bibb?
Yes. Item 13 is board discussion. Real quick, so that everybody knows, for the replacement for Ms. Stewart, we had 29 applicants. We whittled that down to 7. Since then, 2 have dropped out. We have 2 interviews scheduled for tonight, and we have 3 tonight.
2 tonight.
2 tonight, okay.
3 on Saturday.
And then 3 on Saturday. And then as far as the treasurer update, or treasurer search update, we had a presentation by a firm called K-12, who's the same firm that Ms. Cropper provided to us for Mr. Hook. and they presented to us on Monday. The cost is less than $9,000 for the search. Two board members were looking for more information, so I forwarded you a packet from OSBA. I don't know if you had a chance to review it and what your thoughts are.
I have not. I apologize. It is on my list when we finish here tonight,
Okay.
just because of everything else we've had going on.
All right.
Yeah, I've had a chance to review it. I mean, it seems the services are the same. The members of the team are more administrators instead of treasurers. I don't know if you've had a chance to reach back out to them, if they're interested in making a presentation. I'd definitely like to get your thoughts as well, Wendy. To see if there's an opportunity to hear from that group as well, from OSBA's team.
Yeah, as well as potentially Hamilton County, since that is Hamilton County Education Service Center is our local provider of a lot of consultation and contract supports. I think it would be worth a question as to whether that's something they pursue as well, just to know what our options are on the table.
All right. Fair enough.
Other board things?
You can go first.
Sure. So just a reminder as the liaison with the Forest Hills Foundation for Education that the 5K is May 10th. If you haven't put it in your calendar, it is an amazing community event to see everybody come out together. So just want to give that another shout out. Secondly, I just wanted to give an update. We approved the minutes from the work session at the beginning of tonight, and that was a work session to come together around an evaluation process as a board for our superintendent and treasurer. So at this point, we are finalizing drafts of both a superintendent and treasurer evaluation. We started with the templates from Neola, a respectable organization in education who are involved in a lot of our policies, and adapted those to align with the job descriptions that Forest Hills has for both our superintendent and treasurer. And they now include collaborative goal development and scheduled dates for evaluations. So I am finishing some edits on those. Then we're going to share them with Larry and Alana to get their feedback on the varied items and make sure we're all in agreement. But we are moving forward with that process. So I felt it was important to bring an update on that. Third, I'm not going to spend a lot of time addressing comments tonight, other than to say I am glad we are all in favor of the cultural blueprint, because I do think that is very much where this district and the professional educators who work in it are focused. The cultural blueprint focuses around making sure that students feel seen and heard and valued and accepted, and that involves acknowledging the unique students who come to the table for who they are and welcoming them into our classrooms and providing good instruction. I have seen no issues around questions of feeling like one is the oppressed or oppressor. I've seen only that focus on acceptance. And with that, I will share some actual work that is happening in our district as some shout outs that I think it's important to recognize, because that is what's happening in our building. So our preschool program supports about 200 students every day. About half of those are students with disabilities, half are not. So it is an amazing environment of growth and opportunities to thrive for all of our students. The preschool program has been awarded the Step Up to Quality Gold Level Program standard, which is the highest you can get. They are currently in the middle of conducting curriculum-based assessments where they do a check-in on every student to make sure they're learning and growing to the degree we need them to, and provide additional instruction where needed, so meeting the needs of all of our kids. And then that would also lead to an additional shout out for Jody Brandon, the Anderson Chamber of Commerce Educator of the Year, who I've had the opportunity to work with and is absolutely phenomenal. So congratulations, Jody. So that's an idea of what's happening in our preschool. Preschool happens out of Sherwood Elementary, and Sherwood has also started a Forest Families event this year. It is part of work that's happening across all 6 of our elementary schools, with cross-grade level teams coming together to foster a culture of community, collection, and acceptance amongst all of our students. Topic for this month was kindness, and students had the opportunity to interact with others in their building who they might not otherwise, to develop those kind skills we want our kids to exhibit. The Rap and Ropes team at Sherwood will also be performing at Red's opening day on Thursday, so if you're heading down to the parade, make sure you look out for them. Ayer recently hosted their festival and spring musical, so lots of amazing extracurricular events happening for our students as well in the field. At Maddox, speaking of strong academics, Zane Vashi, a 5th grader at Maddox, participated in the regional finals of the Spelling Bee, made it to the 4th round. So kudos for representing Maddox and Forest Hills well. The teams are currently meeting what are referred to as MTSS meetings. Those are multi-tiered systems of support. Those are meetings where we look at data building wide to make decisions about what's working and not for our students so that we can do better as educators. And there is a 4th quarter Maddox Matters PBIS challenge in which students are challenged to take care of Maddox. So not only are we focusing on taking care of each other, but also taking care of our environment, and that includes the school every day. Working toward a Golden Tablecloth Award. So imagine being the grade level that gets the Golden Tablecloth at lunch. Those are big things in elementary. I think I hit the different elementary schools and a couple secondary. Over at Anderson, I love this. Anderson just completed what's called an open door day, where teachers were able to observe other teachers, provide feedback and feed forward of encouragement to their peers, and also a student shadow day in which teachers from each department followed students around for the day and their schedule, really giving them a good perspective on what the day and the life of a student looks like at the building. So what a great way to help with understanding what the student perspective is, build empathy for our students, and what it looks like to move from chair to chair for multiple bells a day. And then again, be able to think about the environment and how we can do better by our students. The annual film festival just occurred this past weekend, and 2 Anderson wrestlers qualified for and competed well at state, and those 2 were Marshall Morency and Joe Scherstein. So nice job on that. And I will applause for them. And I will round it out with Nagel, who recently hosted a 6th grade family Nagel open house, and behind the scenes, I heard wonderful things about it. It was a packed event. Elementary parents were super excited to send their kids to middle school, and that says a lot because I know it's a scary time as a parent having done it twice. So amazing event. Thank you to all the staff who put that on and made all of the students and new parents feel welcome. And then lots of events celebrating staff appreciation, as Mr. Hook mentioned. And then recently, they have competed in a Power of the Pen and Math Counts competitions and have had students advancing to the state science fair. The Nighthawks lacrosse team has kicked off their inaugural season. So across all of these buildings, we have focus on students taking care of each other, taking care of their environment, learning how to problem solve, learning how to get along, strong academics, strong athletics, strong arts, and I don't think I could ask for better from our schools.
I had a few shout outs as well from some schools. And before I do that, I want to acknowledge, Mr. Hook mentioned this earlier, but it is Staff Appreciation Week. And so I think all of us would be remiss if we didn't give a shout out to all of our workers, custodians, cafeteria workers, teachers, paras. They make this district happen. So big shout out here on Staff Appreciation Week to all of our staff. So at Mercer, this past week, last week, they had their 3rd grade special persons night. So the students were able to perform in front of their families or special persons in their lives, and share their portrait of their guest and kind of show off their school and classroom. So that was fun for the 3rd graders. Over at Wilson last week, they had their Sparks Day. I'm so sad, this is the last one for my son, but Sparks Day is a really awesome event that they do every year. And the idea behind it is to ignite a spark in the kids' minds in some type of interest, skill, hobby, or career. And so volunteers come in and they speak to 4th through 6th graders about a whole host of different activities or interests or skill sets that those volunteers are engaged in a regular basis in their lives. The students get to ask questions. Sometimes there's some hands-on activities. and they fill out their passports of the different speakers that they listen to and hear from. So a really awesome event to help prepare students as they are moving forward into secondary schools, so they can start to think about how they might be using the things they're good at or their interests and applying them to their lives as they advance forward. And then here at Turpin, on March 17th, so that was this past Monday, the choir and theater program hosted a Broadway performer, Thane Jasperson. Thane is currently a member of the musical Hamilton, performing on Broadway, and he was in Disney's High School Musical movies. The students were able to learn a choreographed routine and music workshop, and then were able to perform in front of Mr. Jasperson. This was made possible due to funding from the Forest Hills Foundation for Education. So big thank you to all our community members who contribute to the foundation through the 5K and other ventures. This is an example of how that money is being used to better the experience of our students. As Mr. Hook mentioned earlier, Debbie Nemo was recognized as the Teacher of the Year by Hamilton County Education for Foundation, so she's going to be honored on May 2nd at the Celebrate Excellence Awards. Anthony Munoz will be the MC at that event, so congratulations to Debbie. Last weekend, Eden B., who's a senior at Turpin, won the vocal music category at the Overture Awards. The Overture Awards are a program that recognizes and rewards excellence in the arts in Greater Cincinnati for students in 9th through 12th grades. It's the area's largest solo arts competition, so congratulations to Eden for winning the vocal music category. And then we have another state champion at Turpin. Senior Hayden Myers won 2 state championships in swimming, in the 200-yard individual medley and 100-yard backstroke. He's going to be continuing his swimming career next year at University of Georgia, so congrats. Mr. Bibb mentioned the process that we're going through with the new board member. At our special meeting on Monday night, we did accept Mrs. Stewart's resignation that she submitted on Tuesday, March 11th. And so we are following board policy and Ohio law that states we have 30 days to fill that position. And in the first 10 days, we're receiving applications from folks in the community that are interested. We're not able to vote until after 10 days. The reason that this is being so expedited is because I'll be out of town starting next Monday for several weeks. So Saturday and Sundays are our only days to actually vote on this and get it done within that 30-day window. So that's why it seems like this is an expedited process. But as Mr. Bibb mentioned, we did get.
Don't get it done, it goes to probate.
Yeah. If we don't elect somebody in 30 days, if we're not able to come to an agreement this weekend, the probate judge will decide for us who will fill the seat, and it'll be completely out of our hands. So we've been working toward that. We have our 5 interviews, 2 tonight, 3 Saturday, and hopefully on Saturday at a special meeting we'll be able to come to a decision on somebody. The last thing that I wanted to bring up, one of the speakers brought it up today, was the issue of what happened last month with the resignation of the treasurer. And I get the idea of not wanting to move backwards and continue moving forward, but I think it bears mentioning that Mrs. Stewart, who resigned who submitted her resignation on March 11th, was under contract for a house in another district at the time of her vote on February 20th. And on February 26th, 6 days later, closed on that house in another district. And I bring that up because while legally she was able to vote, she's still a resident, none of the 4 board members, based on what everybody said, were aware of her impending move. And I find it extremely unethical that this vote was made, particularly given that the existing makeup of the board would have been split on that decision. Obviously, we don't have the support of the board right now to cast another vote on the issue, but it is something that I wanted to mention, that the way that was handled was completely unprofessional, completely unethical, and didn't represent our district fairly as an elected official. So, bears mentioning. I also want to say, Dr. Strickler is going to be talking here in a few minutes about a resolution and testimony to the state legislature. Mr. Hook, I really want to thank you for your time speaking to legislatures this week and advocating on behalf of our school district for fair funding. But again, I brought this up several times. What we're going through right now in Ohio, and our district particularly with our funding, is going to be very challenging. And while we're moving forward with the process of hiring a search firm to find a new treasurer, I think it's our responsibility to not just hire a treasurer for the sake of hiring a treasurer. We need someone that's experienced. And as I said last month, I have my doubts on whether we'll be able to find somebody who's experienced as our current treasurer. And I really just want to caution, as we're searching treasurers here, that this is not the right time to be doing that.
So before we finish tonight, along the lines of what Mr. Hook had shared about funding, there are a lot of grave concerns right now about what's happening with funding in the state. The current proposal that has come from the governor at the moment has $100,000 plus decreases in the funding that Forest Hills would receive as part of the what's called the guarantee, which I'm happy to talk about more with anyone who's interested, or actually Elena is your better resource, in terms of state funding. And that would, in essence, create a $2.8 million loss in Forest Hills budget over the next 5 years. It's significant. That budget has now gone to the House, which in many ways has been less favorable towards public schools. It will then go to the Senate. So we are at a point where one of the modes we have available to us to be a part of the solution is public pressure as the constituents of the representatives and senators who are making this decision. And so there has been a lot of talk around about passing resolutions as a school board in support of fully funding the fair school funding model with the guarantee. There have been templates around to help do that. I know Mr. Hook has seen them as well. And so I worked this week to create a template for Forest Hills, talked to Mr. Bibb about it, worked with Elena to make sure the facts were correct in it, but basically passing a resolution as a board that based on Ohio's constitutional guarantee of a thorough and efficient system of common schools, based on the fair school funding model that has been developed, based on the 1998 Ohio Supreme Court decision that public schools needed to be funded in a way that was stable, adequate, fair, and predictable, that we are able to put forth a resolution saying that we support funding public schools in Ohio as a public school board, speaking to the risk this holds for Forest Hills and expressing our desire to see the fair school funding model fully funded with updated inputs to reflect 2024 expenditures and a guarantee to ensure that our income from the state remains consistent. And I just want to be really clear before I put this forth to the group that the challenge here is that schools are funded through state, federal, and local. And local, that's us, that's our levies, that's our tax money, already covers the bulk of that expense. If we lose more state funding, the only option is for us to come back to the public to try to offset those differences or to start making cuts. So it is gravely important that we do everything we can to push our legislators and our senators to make good decisions on behalf of our public schools. So with that, I'm making a motion to approve the Forest Hills resolution in support of the Fair School Funding Plan, and I welcome any comments.
Yeah, I'm on the Finance Committee.
Can I stop real quick? Our first interview starts in 30 seconds.
Yeah, I get that, but this is important. I want to.
I agree with you 1,000%.
Yeah, but I don't think the public's aware of all this information. We'll get there.
We can.
60 seconds. Right?
Yeah.
All right. Give me 60 seconds.
As has been mentioned, we're going to be losing money on the state budget. The state of Ohio pays us $2,013.44 every year to meet the guarantee. That's the shortfall between what the their formula, fair school funding formula, says we should get, and what we used to get before the fair school funding model was enacted. The problem is the CUP report, which is an annual district profile provided by the Ohio Department of Education, says that in Forest Hills School District, it costs $14,701 per pupil. So that is a difference of $12,687 between what it costs per pupil to educate in Ohio and what the state of Ohio pays us. The state is only paying 13%, and as Dr. Strickler mentioned, that is made up largely by us as taxpayers. The biennial budget for public school funding in Ohio in the next 2 years is going to see a $103.4 million decrease in funds going to public schools. Meanwhile, there will be an increase of $265.4 million to vouchers and an increase of $221.8 million to community and STEM schools. For fiscal year 25, so this fiscal year now, only 74% of the state's education budget, which comes from our state tax dollars, goes to pay public education. Right, so the state funding in Ohio is paying $2,822 per student to attend public schools, $6,166 to attend private schools through the vouchers for students in kindergarten through 8th grade, and over $8,000 for private school vouchers for students in 9th through 12th grade. In fiscal year 26, 87% of districts in Ohio, public school districts in Ohio, are going to see their share of funding go down. And in fiscal year 27, 81.1% of those 87% of the districts are going to see their share go down again. So this resolution that Wendy's putting forward to vote on, as well as the testimony to state legislators, is based on this information that, if this new budget goes through and cuts more state funding, we're going to become more dependent on levies, have to ask more frequently, and make more cuts in our district that are going to harm our students, harm our district's reputation, hurt our property values, et cetera.
Do I have a motion on the table, or do I need to make it?
I think we should take some of this paragraphs out, because it looks like they know that it's unconstitutional. And after hearing what Larry said, we may want to rewrite it so that we offer them a solution. I agree with it. We've talked about this.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's something we want to look at.
Yeah, I mean, the solutions are on the second page in terms of what we are asking them to do. And this, it models what's happening in other school districts, the ones passed by Loveland and Milford and the Oaks and Worthington, just so there's a continuity, I think, across districts sending the message. I don't know how much difference it makes. I do know we need to get it done efficiently, or we will miss the window, because this is going to the Senate at the beginning of April.
Well, the second paragraph, they've been told this for years, and it doesn't do any good to them.
Fair enough. Are you looking at the testimony or the resolution? Just so I know which one.
The testimony.
Okay. I think it's just the verbiage of, stable, adequate, fair, predictable funding. I'm not opposed to getting rid of that, but I think we've told them what we're asking for.
We can change it and do it on Saturday.
Are we able to include this in our meeting Saturday? We can't vote on it.
I think we can, can't we?
Can we?
We did advertise the meeting as any other item could be added to the agenda. A lot of times the courts don't like that. I could re-advertise the meeting. We're still 48 hours.
Because I don't disagree with what you're saying. I'm just thinking if we
condense it a little bit.
do something, tweak it a little bit.
Okay.
Is it fair?
Opposed to that? Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah,
Right.
If we can do it on Saturday, I'm okay with that.
And we'll put this on the agenda to be released for Saturday as well.
Yeah.
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 No, I appreciate that. I want to make sure we don't push it until April, because I think we will miss the window of being part of being proactive.
My fear is that the politicians up there see the same thing, and they're going to look at it and be like, it's just another one. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's, you could see that going one way or the other, but I can appreciate that. Yes, absolutely. We can revisit it. I put it in a Google Doc so we can all edit. So, absolutely.
All right. And then need a motion to go to executive session, please.
Who's reading it? Are you reading it? Pursuant to Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G1, I hereby move that the board adjourn to executive session for the purpose of considering the appointment of a public employer official.
Second.
Second. Mrs. Jonas?
Yes.
Dr. Strickler?
Yes.
Dr. Simmons?
Yes.
Mr. Bibb?
Yes.
Thank you. I heard I need a second. I was like, okay.
We're not expecting any action after this.
Your action is reading me and Earl, the dying girl. Yeah, I got it. Excuse me. No, I am representing you and Mayor West. I appreciate the settlement.